So thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about our particular approach for self-driving. Now I want to take you back to the year 1970. Yesterday I learned that the Sokoji Temple was actually first built in 1970. At that same time, halfway around the world, I was growing up in this town of Springfield, New Jersey, and every day I would take this sidewalk over here to walk home. This was a pretty busy road, and at that same time I had a classmate who would take his bicycle, and he would take a bicycle that looked like this. This is a 1970 Schwinn, and he would ride in front of me as I walked home. And so here again is the same road, and here you see the sidewalk, and he was in front of me riding his bicycle, and I was walking behind. Unfortunately, in my town, the maintenance of the sidewalk is not very good, and you can see the root of this tree grew underneath the sidewalk and made a crack and a bump on the sidewalk, which was very bad. And very unfortunately, on that day in 1970, his bicycle hit this bump, he lost control, and he ended up with his bicycle in the road over here. He was struck by a car coming this way on the road, and it was incredibly sad because he was killed. My memory of that event many years ago is strongest because the accident was so strong that his shoes were knocked off of him. And I remember looking at his shoes on the road separate from him. But I also remember something else, which I think a lot about today, which was that the driver sat down on the road also and held his head in his hands and cried. And what I learned a long time ago was that car accidents are terrible not only for the victims of the people that are injured and killed, and of course the families of the people that are injured and killed, but also for the drivers. And that we need to think about the effect of the driver who lives with the guilt of causing the crash for the rest of their life, especially if there is a fatality. So this was in my mind and part of the reason that I came to Toyota. Now, as we spoke about a little bit yesterday, and I think we all know here in Japan, there is an aging society demographic crisis. This is the best chart I know of, which some of my staff have found, showing what the different possibilities are for the future. It's not certain, but they're all pretty bad. And so at least by the year 2050, 38% of the population in Japan, on average, from the projections, will be over age 65. And so, of course, older people have much more trouble with driving safely than younger people, and they suffer from inattention and slow reaction time, and especially pedal misapplication, which we all know about. But this problem exists other places in the world also. And so here's one for China. And you see China actually, because of the one-child policy, has a demographic aging crisis which will be very bad. And again here, by 2060, average projection is that 30% of China's population will be over age 65. And in the United States, it's also bad. We are presently going through this huge aging society change. The maximum number here is not so bad, but it keeps climbing afterwards. And this is because of the large number of babies that were born after World War II that are now becoming older. And so 20% of the US population will be over age 65 by 2030. So what's the answer? Many people have said self-driving cars, because if the car drives instead of the human being, no one will cause a crash even if they are older. But this is an article from yesterday that I found, and here's what it says. Despite high hopes, self-driving cars are way in the future. Ford and other companies say the industry overestimated the arrival of autonomous vehicles, which still struggle to anticipate what other drivers and pedestrians will do. And so what has happened is, especially after some crashes that happened last year, is the industry as a whole has slowed down a lot and is much less optimistic about self-driving cars for the near future. And so the question is why? what is the reason that this is all slowing down now? And the first reason is actually economic, the cost of the hardware. You know much better than I do how little profit margin there is on the sale of every car. And from that profit margin, there is not much money for hardware, for sensors, and for computers to put inside of the car for self-driving. And what this means is that mobility as a service cars, which can be more expensive and have a higher cushion of price and cost, will come before personally owned vehicle automated cars will come. The second problem is that most driving is easy, but some driving is very hard. And as the news article said yesterday, artificial intelligence is still inferior to people at predicting human behavior. We are very good at looking in the eyes of a driver, in the back of the windshield of another car, and predicting what they will do. We are very good at looking at a pedestrian and predicting, will they cross the street or will they stay by themselves? AI systems are still very inferior to this. Toyota cars, in addition, have a problem of scale. And so our cars in total around the Earth travel around 1 trillion kilometers every year. That's 10 to the 12th power. And what this means is that because there's so much travel, even if our automated driving system is good, some crashes will still occur. And so finally, we have the problem that a car without a human driver is something that it is difficult for people to empathize if the self-driving car has a crash. And so when a mistake is made, it is hard for people to empathize, and they blame the company that made the car. So the whole car industry and the IT industry is understanding that liability and brand risk for self-driving is very high, particularly because of the scale of how much driving goes on. Okay, so our prediction is that initially slow speed, good weather, urban robo-taxi, and robo-shuttle will occur first. Okay, so it asks the question, is self-driving the only way? I want to take you back even further. 1897, I'm sure many of you know what the significance of this year is, because 1897 was the invention of the Toyota Power Loom. And even more importantly, the invention of this idea of jidoka. And I have been learning a little bit about TPS. You know much more than me, but my understanding of jidoka is autonomation or automation with a human touch. And the invention from Sakichi Toyota is that there was a halting device to stop the loom as soon as one of the threads was broken. And as a result, the cloth was higher quality, so the defect was not introduced, but also much more efficient use of people because one person could supervise many machines. So from this very, very old invention, what I take out is a deep idea. And the deep idea is that this is an example of a beautiful synergy between people and machines. And that jidoka has this deep idea inside. And that it's really that people do what they do best, and machines do what they do best. And the reason this invention is so powerful is that the synergy of people and machines each doing what they do best results in a really good system. And so my question is, can we apply the human-machine synergy of jidoka to create safer cars? So I'm going to show you some videos from TRI now about our progress with that idea.
One of the most significant breakthroughs that we made this year at TRI is this idea of blended vehicle control between the human and the machine. We're inspired by the way that modern fighter jets are flown today, where you have a pilot that flies the stick, but actually they don't fly the plane directly. Their intent is actually translated by the flight control system thousands of times a second. To do it on a car is much harder because the envelope's not only defined by the vehicle dynamics, but importantly, it's really defined by perception and prediction. what is this idea of envelope control. What does it really mean to have blended control between the human and machine? The human really feels nothing. They feel 100% in control in terms of driving the car. But as they begin to kind of reach the edge of this envelope, that's where the envelope begins to then work with the human to help kind of nudge them back. And in fact, if the human even tries to kind of overcorrect and go past that envelope, the machine will actually prevent the vehicle from responding to that input. Because the big idea we really want to drive home is that this is not a discrete switch between the human and the autonomy. It's really a blend. One of the main ideas that we want to come across is really this perception capability of this vehicle to understand 360 degrees around the car. So in this case, the driver may not be paying attention to a vehicle that's trying to merge from a blind driveway and come into traffic. How it goes beyond, most systems would just think about braking to try to stop and mitigate a collision. But our car knows whether it would be safe to do a lane change into the opposite lane to avoid a crash, as well as see the obstructed lane ahead and be able to do a lane change back. Importantly, with this blended control, you may overreact with steering input, but with this idea of the envelope control, we can actually account for whether the human is providing too much input to the system. We're able to work with the human's input with the autonomy system to prevent the car from getting into that situation, and then to do a safe lane change.
Okay, so I think that gives you a little bit of a taste of what it's like. The next question, and I know that this is a very serious event, and I told you a very sad story at the beginning, is how about love of car and fun to drive? Can safety actually be fun? It sounds like they are opposite ideas, but they're not really opposite ideas. And so, here's another video about that.
In this symbiotic blend between the human and the machine, the system can actually augment you and make you a better driver. In fact, regardless of your skill, the machine can kind of help level you up as a driver and make you way more performant. And so we kind of set up this scenario so that first we ask the person to drive through unassisted. So we turn Guardian off and say, try to go through the slalom course as fast as you can, but be comfortable. So if you want to take the speed down, go ahead. And you'll find that we set it up so that usually people will clip cones, they can't really make it through. If you're the average driver, it's a really hard course. We then turn Guardian on and say, why don't you take it again? And this time, hit the gas and just don't let up. And they can actually go through the course perfectly. And so this idea of this kind of teammate concept, it's not a discrete human or machine. It's really, how do we blend the best of both and kind of make you superhuman, if you will.
Okay, so these are very short clips I'm showing you because I don't have much time, but I hope the idea is coming across. I want to take you even further and ask you a question. How much fun can safety really be? How much fun can a Guardian system potentially make it? So I have watched Akio-san drive for high performance and do drifting, and so I want to show you some other drifting. Pretty good driver, huh? Okay. So my question is, can fun enhance safety? Can safety enhance fun? And now I have a surprise for you. Guess who the driver was in this car? Here's the beginning. This was done by Stanford University, Professor Chris Gerdes, and TRI, and also the chassis division at TMC, Advanced Research, are working together with Stanford to understand better how drifting works. Now, why is this important? Of course, fun is nice, fun is great, But why is this important for safety? Because if you think deeply, when a car is in trouble, when the human driver has almost had a crash, the autonomy system, the guardian system, may have to operate the car close to the edge of the performance envelope in order to prevent the crash. So the work on autonomous drifting can help the guardian safety system be safer. And of course, the guardian system can also help the autonomous drifting system work more effectively too. So it's really all one thing. So the answer to this question, can safety be fun? Can fun help safety? Is yes. Safety, fun to drive, and love of car, all of these ideas are actually synergistic. And so my last slide here, and I've made this very short, is Jidoka gave us this incredible idea over 100 years ago that human and machine can work together synergistically, and that's the best answer. Our approach to automated driving is the same, but in particular, we have discovered that love of car and fun to drive can be synergistic in the same way with safety as human and machines are synergistic as well. And that this idea of this kind of synergy is a very old idea at Toyota that dates back to the beginning. Thank you very much.